Hello, world. It is I. He is I. Wow, I have already smoked a lot. It's me, Ryan, aka Crownson's Corner. Um, this is the Healing Chefs podcast. I'm pretty sure. Uh, and the Healing Chefs is all about just real quick is chef is the leader in the kitchen. Chef means chief, just means leader. So anybody that's on the podcast or anything, I believe, is a leader in their own way, if not in their own life. We just had Jordan from Hippie Life Chronicles on, and is a chef himself. But today's chef, or like right now, chef is Emily Diamond. Thank you for joining us all the way from Australia. I'm not that familiar with it, so I'm sorry. But thank you very much for coming on. You've been following along since I basically started, and I really appreciate you. If you could, for the watchers, listeners, uh, tell them before we get into the segments and stuff, I want to start by introducing you. Can you tell them exactly what you do and all that stuff? And she's also at Emily the Diamond on Instagram. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, one of my girlfriends years ago was like used to call me Emily the Diamond. She couldn't just call me my real name, and that's how I got my handle. I really like my name makes me memorable. Thank you so much for having me.
Shout out to her.
I've watched a heap of episodes, and I was like, I don't think you've ever interviewed someone from Australia before. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
it's very cool. Thank you. It's a real privilege. So, I am a subconscious change expert. I've been doing that now for 19 years. I particularly work with neuroplasticity, neurorepatterning, and my work in that space. I coach like people who run companies. I work inside big corporations, and then I work with a lot of owners of businesses with their own personal psychology. And weed has been a big part of my journey and my path in life, and I can't wait to go through the segments today. Always love watching people's segments and the way you structure the show. I live in Australia. You can tell with my voice and the way I talk. And I am a mum. I have a couple of dogs. I have a kiddo, and I live here in a beautiful part of Australia called Brisbane, which is like just near the Barrier Reef, if anyone wants a reference. But it's hot here now, and it's 7 a.m. So totally the other side of the world shenanigans.
Absolutely, and I like how you explain that. What time? Well, could you explain to people what time it is there?
Yeah, it's 7:20 a.m. on Monday Australian time, and it's like 2:20 p.m. in Arizona on a Sunday. So
Look,
I'm in the future, man. That's where I am. I'm in the future. The sun's hit me
guys,
already.
you've asked me about time travel. We're doing it.
It's
You're a part of it. You're a part of time travel.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm reaching to you from the future.
Holy cow! All right, I'm too high for that, or not high enough. If there's not such thing. All right, but thank you very much for introducing yourself so people know where you're coming from and everything. Real quick, let's go ahead and jump into the first segment. We'll play the little thing, which is Cannabis Journey. Trying to talk to people with cans on my head, that doesn't work. I'm artillery. I don't hear very well. uh, so Cannabis Journey is all about how you found cannabis and where you're at with it in your life right now. Could you uh, indulge us into how you found it? Maybe like how old and like how you consumed it, stuff like that.
For sure. So I am the youngest of a big family by a few years. I was one of those accidental babies that wasn't really meant to happen. So my parents finished having their kids, my cousins, they were all born, and then I came along. And so all of my siblings and cousins are like 3 to 5 at least years older than me. And, most of them are like 8 to 10 years older than me. So when they were all starting to experiment with doing drugs, I was little and I was there, and they had to include me or they would get busted. So I was like,
Oh yeah. I know that. Like, no. Whatever that is, I'm doing that too.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And you can't shut me out, and I'm here. And yeah. And in Australia, there's a
How to
phrase.
leverage people.
In Australia, there's a phrase called being a dobber, which is to dob someone in, like to be a narc.
Oh,
Yeah, we
don't
have
do that. We don't do that.
yeah, we have these funny English words, and dobbing is like telling on someone, right? Ratting them out. And so as a kid, you can threaten to be a dobber. So that was the threat that all of my
Oh
cousins
no.
had, was that I would dob them in, right? So they had to include me. That was my leverage, so
Oh
that I could
no.
do whatever they were doing and be cool with them. So I was about 10 when I
Rough.
started smoking cigarettes with my cousins, because they were all like 13, 15. So they were doing all like developmentally appropriate experimentation. And I was just that little bit younger. And then so weed, it was 12. So weed, it was 12. And all of my extended family live in a place that's pretty famous for weed here called Byron Bay. So a lot of people know about this place called Byron Bay, and that's like the weed capital of Australia. It's a 2 hour drive from where I grew up, and my extended family lived there. So every vacation we were there, you know, five,
Bucket
6
list.
there for weeks. And so my cousins grew up with weed all around them and a really strong weed culture. And so, yeah, I just got immersed in that. So it was regularly smoking weed with them, and then being like, hang on, this is great. This gives me so much comfort because I'm a really mentally intense person. And I was dealing with some developmental issues too. Like I'd been sexually abused and I had confusing feelings and lots of anger. And weed was the medicine. Weed was the medicine that I didn't know I needed. And it made me kind of normal. It made me like able to deal with people and made me able to be patient and put up with stuff and handle my frustration. So it was magic. So it quickly escalated into finding ways to have access to weed in my local area and community. And then just I think it was when I was 15 I started smoking weed like every day, like wake up in the morning, smoke weed before you have breakfast, that kind of routine that people get into when they start using weed as their main coping strategy. So for me it was this coping mechanism and this magical medicine.
Nice. Well, yeah. I mean, after a while, like when I was a kid, I was like, okay, this is fun, and I'm doing it for the wrong thing. But yeah, once I realized that I was actually, yeah, helping myself or anything like that, definitely became like the coping mechanism. Became almost a crutch, maybe at times. But then nowadays, it's just something that like enhances my life. I still use it for different like anxiety. Anxiety, is that a word? I'm just creating words. Anxiety, yeah, like anxiety. Just helping my anxiety or something like that. Maybe sometimes it doesn't work; it goes against it. But anyway, so like with cannabis, did like so you first started flower now in Arizona and like in the states?
Started was what we call bushweed here in Australia. So it was
Oh,
people
like
growing.
ditch weed.
It wasn't commercial weed. It was you'd be smoking lots of leaf with bud, and be dealing with stem and stuff. And we were little kids too, so we didn't have great access to cash, and we didn't have great access to hydro. And then yeah, so once I was sourcing stuff in the city that I live in,
Hmm.
I started to get access to skunk and to hydroponically grown stuff, and I was like, oh, whoa, 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 this is very
Yeah,
different.
world
I have
changing.
weed experience, more like self-medication, like where you smoke it and you can't function and you're like, this is great because I'm escaping the reality that I don't want to be in, as well
Yeah,
as a lot of hit and miss, like is this going to be a fun smoke or is this going to be I can't move?
yeah. That's funny. Also, with cannabis out here, they do a lot of like concentrates, dabbing, and stuff like that. Is that big in Australia? I've unfortunately uh, didn't. I've had to move this past week. Um,
Oh wow, I heard you say you had heaps of stuff going on, you were moving house full on.
yeah. So okay, I'll jump into that real quick.
Yeah.
um,
It was like I was
so
like
I
happening.
literally had till the 30th to get out of the apartment that I was in. And I didn't have like I had even applied a couple places, got denied, and like one place said it was basically guaranteed, but their background check was just taking like 12 days or so long. So then I finally found this other place and I got approved, but I literally got approved the day before. I got approved the 29th for the apartment to move out on the 30th. So yeah, I was extremely stressed, so I wasn't doing a lot.
Yeah.
I was just trying to take care of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
with that, that's what I was going through, and that's just something I didn't lay on everybody else, because we all go through things that, and we can go over mental health later. But yeah, no, I was moving, stuff like that. I don't I don't know where we were going with that, but with dabbing and stuff like that, do they do that in like a lot in Australia, or is it more like flower? Or I don't know if I got off topic. I'm
Ah,
stumbling.
it's all good. It's all good. So Australia is really behind the USA in terms of consumption, because in Australia we have still a lot of weird legislation and regulation around weed. So weed in the majority, and I'm talking like 99% of Australia, is still illegal. It's still criminal. You can't grow. You can't be caught. Possession laws are still strong, and people aren't thrown in jail. Like we aren't an incarceration nation like the US is. So you don't get thrown in jail. You get a slap on the wrist. You get a fine. That sort of stuff is what happens. But you know, it's
Well, at
still
least it's
legal.
that.
So we don't have dispensaries. The only type of good quality regulation we have around cannabis use is medicinal cannabis that started about 5 years ago, where if you've got certain health conditions, you go and you're taking oil, and we import that stuff from Canada. Some people have just started properly growing here in Australia and getting licenses for medicinal manufacturing here in Australia, but you can't just go buy recreational weed in Australia. So everything's still underground. So we do have edibles, we do have a heap of CBD on the market, but you can't walk into it. Like I was in the States in 2019 and I was like, I want to go to a dispensary. I don't smoke weed just currently at the moment, but I was like, I need to go to a dispensary because weed's still such a part of my kind of culture and experience in life, and I have such a big
Yeah.
appreciation for it, and people around me still use for all sorts of reasons. And I was so impressed, because I was super impressed that like those experiences that we had as kids, which were like, is this gonna make me really creative and I can smash out that university assignment, or is this gonna put me in a coma? Like, which one is it gonna be
Yeah,
today?
playing Russian roulette with the plug. Yeah.
Yeah, being able to walk into a dispensary and be like, this is going to do that, that's going to do that, and here's the dosage, and here's the mechanism, and here's the delivery method. I was so excited. I was like, I can't wait for this to come to Australia.
Yeah.
And I just, to kind of close out on my weed journey, I used pretty much every day till I was like, for like 9 years, so like 15 to 24. And then I went through like a big, epiphany, which psychedelics helped me with a lot. And I was like, got really obsessed because I was smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, taking recreational drugs, had some destructive relationships and stuff, still trying to work out my stuff from my childhood. And I'd had some chronic
Right.
pain with the spinal injury and stuff as well. And I got really obsessed with, and I have no idea where this came from, I got obsessed with this idea of that I didn't really know who I was, because I'd been using substances through my teens. And I was like, maybe I don't even really know who I am without this stuff. And I got like this weird obsession, which is, who would I be if nothing was influencing me? Like, if it wasn't like, oh, but I smoked weed 2 days ago, oh, but I took acid or ecstasy 5 days ago. Like, I
Hmm.
was like, who is this person without any of this stuff?
Kind of the imposter syndrome a little bit.
I was trying to find out, like, without anything else influencing my parents, my friends, my boyfriends, drugs, alcohol, any kind of substances, who is like the pure me?
Hmm.
And I was like, I realized I didn't know who that was. And so I went on a full on like transformational healing journey with subconscious change and different coaches and techniques, because I wanted to just be like, who am I without any of those constructs? Who am I without any of those things, those props, those crutches,
Yeah.
those influences, those hangovers? Um, and then that's meant that now I haven't smoked weed since 2005, which is crazy. It's like a long time. That's 18 years, right? But I tried to smoke weed a year after I stopped, and I instantly got like insane anxiety. And I'd never ever had that the whole time I'd smoked, all in those years. I'd never had it. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll come back to this later in my life. I'll come back to this
Yeah.
later, particularly when I know I can, have that ability to go, well, this is going to make me feel this way. Like, you go
Yeah, when you
through a
guys like, yeah, make it to like having dispensaries and being able to go to somewhere and pick out what you're doing, because I do understand that now as an adult. I would. I I can see people actually stopping because of like you just don't know what you're gonna get. Just because what they tell you is what they tell you, it doesn't mean like when you go home, your body's gonna respond the same way. So like even that's one part of it.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean I get it because that I don't like that uncertainty, and that's kind of what I've kind of gone into lately with the Arizona cannabis industry. Even though you got all these choices, not everything works for you, and you're almost a victim, victim, to the market at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
time,
yeah.
um, and not even just that, not even just what people are growing or what people are processing, but shelf like stock on shelf
Oh,
because
deals
like
all the
just
time.
because you find something one week, the next week that shit's gone like the next day almost here. And then they've moved on to something else and yeah.
And we're all
Or
individual, and you share about this, like depending on like your mental health landscape as well. Like certain things work for you, and it's actually really beneficial. And that's the thing is, weed was so beneficial for me for so long, and
mm,
I that's why I have such a love for it. But my husband deals with the same thing you do, especially with medicinal cannabis, because he's on a THC CBD regulated balance for like insomnia stuff. And they'll change formula, and he knows, and they don't disclose it. And then that ruins his life for a few weeks because he doesn't sleep properly. And he just like jokes about that. We make this joke about like he'll be lying in bed and I'll be like, "How's it going? Have you just got like movies in your mind happening, or are you actually able to sleep?" And
yeah,
it's
right.
and he's paid really the same money for that he paid for the previous batch of medicine. It's like, yeah. So
Yeah. They're not
like
even paying attention to what they're giving them. Like,
exactly, and how sophisticated our market is here. Like we are so unsophisticated compared to what the states are doing right now.
yeah.
And like you said, and then there's still issues like, are people disclosing everything? And we don't
Yeah.
know.
That and then like whatever like is on the shelf is what you can get and all that kind of stuff. So I mean you are able to grow out here, but again, that's like growing is like a full-time job. So like you're taking on like it's you're taking on so much once you do that, and it's a lot of money and stuff that has to be invested as well. Money, time, that's all we have. And so
Totally.
like I myself am going to be trying to grow here soon, maybe, I don't know, like just depends on the oh, I got a bunch more shit going on. Once I got moved in, more shit came up, but it is what it is. um but yeah, like unless you're really like growing your own and like processing your own and stuff like that, then you may not really get what you want.
Totally. And if
um
you're relying on that, like if you need to use every day, like friends of mine who've got like fibromyalgia and Parkinson's disease, they need to use their medicine every day. So,
yeah,
like you're saying, to grow that amount that you need for everyday use, it's like a full time job. I went to a bunch of the MJ Biz conferences in the States just
yeah,
before.
they just had that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a couple of years ago, but just even the scale of production that's needed for these companies, it's like people can't do that for themselves. It's too much. Not if you live in a city and things like that. Your space, your lighting, your kit, it's just not possible for people. So it's really interesting.
Right.
Australia's in a really young stage, and I really want to support the cannabis industry here in Australia because I know how beneficial it was for me. Because I'm seriously one of those people who I'm like, if it wasn't for weed, if it wasn't for psychedelics, I don't think I'd be alive. I don't think I would have gotten through my mental health stuff.
We'll jump into psychedelics here real quick, but I
Mm.
believe eventually with the growing and stuff, there's going to be a Keurig kind of a thing where you just drop in
Oh,
pods and stuff and like that and just grow. Now, I have seen some stuff online that are in like prototypes, and I think you can buy some of the stuff, but I'm not sure if it's in production yet. But there's going to be stuff where you just like throw like pods in and stuff and like connect the container of the nutrients or whatever and hook it to your water, and it's going to do it self-contained, and it'll be on an app. I'm sure, I promise you it'll be like that. It's only a matter of time.
I
So
believe that. Even here, there's things like you can put a probe into your compost at home, and it tells you, like
yeah,
how
yeah,
to compost and your whatever.
right. That's great. Yeah, it's all crazy. So it's I mean soon to be all automated and you can do anything. But
And
I
Australia's
just worry about those types of
environment
things
is really good.
because you're taking away nature and stuff like that and adding more plastics, I feel, or some weird. But we'll find out. But real quick, let's jump into the thing about psychedelics. The next segment is trip tales. So, oh, hello. Sorry, just checking time. All right, so trip tales is all about psychedelics. Do you have any stories or how maybe they've helped you?
Oh, hugely. So my first experience of psychedelics, I feel like, was a real score and really lucky and set up a good relationship with them. 1995, I was 15, one of those naughty older cousins living up in the hills in Byron Bay. You can get golden top mushrooms in Byron Bay, and that's some of the best.
I gotta go to this bay.
It's very commercialized now, but there's still a lot of that culture there. Yeah. So, yeah, Byron Bay, Byron. I think Chris Hemsworth has a house there. A lot of Americans know about it because of him. But yeah, so yeah,
Yeah,
it
me
grows.
and him were buddies. I'll hit him up.
Yeah. Just yeah. Yeah. So cowpats, golden top mushrooms grow out of spores that are naturally occurring in cowpats in Australia. So we went paddock bashing, which means
Mushrooms, yeah.
yeah, so we were like rolling, like it rains, the mushrooms come up, and you go and you find a paddock that's got fresh cow poo and maybe has some mushrooms. And we explored
Mm,
that day. And then she had one experience of knowing how to prep the mushrooms. So she did the prep, we had them, and then it was amazing. So it was a full, like, through the night experience. It wasn't a day trip, it was a night trip. So we had that thing of being stars, and I had that experience of, like I said, I had lots of like anger and stuff and displacement from being sexually abused and stuff when I was little. And acid was literally a miracle. I had that moment of being like expanding my consciousness out. So I felt like I had that full perspective of the universe. And then when you go all the way in and you feel like you're the
yeah,
tiniest that could ever have existed in the universe. So you have that moment of full consciousness expansion of being in the fabric of the universe and out there in space, and then all the way down to the tiniest cell in your body. So I had all that. And then after that, I
yeah. When
just,
you realize you are everything.
yeah, everything. And then also so insignificant, so special and such a miracle, but also just like a piece of dust on the wind.
Yeah,
And so that was,
but
yeah.
both is beautiful. Both being like at like like it's just beauty. Like the point of creation and death is, and when acid shows you, is just like that's beautiful, and it just the cycle of things and stuff like that. But you don't really die because you are everything.
Mm.
Um, yeah, like I,
People
um,
who don't know what we're talking about. So that unlocked something in my consciousness about um, you know, the like the prison that I was in with my anger and the prison I was in with my pain and stuff. And yeah, that unlocked something, and it unlocked like a sense of belonging and connectedness, and also like joy and sense of like belonging in the universe. Because I think a lot of us experience like, we look at the world and we think there's so many things that are unfair and not right and not okay, and so much sadness. And I feel that's where I was trapped, and acid fully, broke the chains and brought
awesome.
me back to the purity of creation and joy. And yeah, got me very interested in things like holographic universe theory and other psychedelics. And so spent a
Yeah,
lot of time there, and also like vibrational medicines and healing medicines, because with acid I had the whole thing of like seeing the energy and feeling the energy. And I grew up with my dad being a little bit of a like a hippie, but not like a drug hippie. He was just, he was into energy healing, and he'd had experiences with energy and auras and stuff. So I grew up with that being sort of normalized. But with acid, that was the first time I was like, oh, now I really know what you're talking about. I can really feel my connection with everything on an energy level.
yeah, that's crazy. I'm glad you finally explained what I couldn't really explain a lot to like people, like because at one point I took acid and I had a conversation. I met God. People don't. maybe don't believe in any of that, but I definitely was like I was just in my like I had taken acid, I was just having fun like I normally do, and then all of a sudden something like snapped. Like I was listening to music, I had the YouTube music playing, it was loud in my apartment. Or I had my headphones on and I was tripping, just having a like a little rave, and all of a sudden something stopped me, and I had slides on, and like something made me like step out of my slide, and like it was like, hey, it's me. Like it was like God, like, hey, we're here. And I was like, oh shoot. And at that moment, like I can't explain it to you unless you've done acid. It's not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
What happened at that moment is like not in my vision in front of me, but I just saw a like how everything is like what you explained
Yeah,
from
the whole
space
cycle of
space
creation,
to like vroom,
the
like
cell.
that
Yeah.
is like this is all of you. You are all of this, and I am you. You are me, and all that kind of stuff. And it could
Yeah.
end at any moment. So just enjoy what is going on, and just like, but I am God. Boom, and then that was it. And that could just be something in my head telling me just to, like, to whatever the hell, but like I feel to like I spoke with God that day, and um and that's kind of when that hit. That's kind of when really everything kind of like changed. Like I was like, okay, well maybe I don't really need substances anymore because now I just understand a bit more.
Yeah, it definitely shifted this like why I was using. Like I was mainly using for the anger relief and the stress stuff. And then after the acid with weed in particular, um, it became, I think, a lot about trying to get that feeling back from the acid and
Mm,
trying to access that place of universal consciousness and you know, equilibration and understanding everything. I got to part of my professional life, I got to work with Dr. John DeMartini for a year and a half, and he's a famous teacher whose psychedelic experience opened up his consciousness or third eye, or whatever, however people want to label it, or God consciousness, the different labels, they all mean the same stuff, right?
yeah.
And his stuff was psychedelics in Hawaii. There's some plant in the jungle in Hawaii. I don't know which one it is. Sorry, and yeah, he calls God grand organized
Like
design,
ayahuasca and
universal
all that.
connection.
Are we talking about doing ayahuasca and stuff or what?
I don't know what it was that he
Oh,
was
okay.
taking. It was something he was eating. And I know ayahuasca you have to prepare in a different way. And it wasn't something mild like kava and noni and that stuff that they have there. It was something else.
Mm.
I don't know the details of it. But he had ended up with strychnine poisoning from it because he just took it for too long. And it was, yeah, the components. But yeah, his definition of God is grand organized design. And that really encapsulated what I felt on those good trips. And of course, I've continued, like, and then what happened is, like, you then take psychedelics to try and recreate that experience I found. So I've taken, acid in lots of other forms and, and engineered acid, natural acid and stuff. And
I ain't tried that.
I went through this time where, because I've had a child, where I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to take psychedelics then, because I could feel this responsibility for, I don't want to do anything. Because I've seen also people have negative experiences and them not be functional in their lives after they've experienced psychedelics. So I was like, I don't want to do that while I'm in that kind of zone of my life, but I'll get back to it. So yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
that'll come back to that later.
Absolutely, and I just think that's something that like you got to respect psychedelics and whatnot. And set and setting is huge. You got to be ready for it. Make sure you're in the right place, right time. And anytime I do it, I also like everyone has their own rituals and whatnot, but I like to fast pretty much for the morning, and then for myself, I get something like a curry or something for the rest of the day. Because once after I'm tripping and I come down, I'm gonna be hungry, or I'm gonna be hungry a part of it, and I want something more like I know there's probably a lot of sugar in curries, but something
The warming and the nourishing, that's what all those spices are for. Like the Ayurvedic stuff behind that food is real.
right, right, the turmeric and all that kind of stuff. I want that stuff, and my body craves it. So, but that's I mean that's and then I do my stuff, but that's just kind of how I do. And I'm glad you shared that with us, that experience of the expanding and then contracting into like showing everybody that I am you, you are me, and all that kind of stuff. So
It's
that's
like everythingness and nothingness,
which, yeah,
infiniteness, and if I
all
tap
this
on
stuff doesn't make any sense because, like, if you think about the universe, they say it's ever expanding, but ever expanding into nothingness. But how can nothing be expanding? And where is it expanding to? If there's like, if it's not there already, then what it is it? Where is it going?
that's
Like,
above my pay grade, man. Like even the stuff that I do with
I
when you
trip
do
too much. I trip too much.
yeah, when you do
I trip too much.
conscious regression work, it's like time is a linear construct for most human beings, but then there's this really small percentage of people who time is circular for them in their perception. And according to the physicists, they're correct. And I'm like, yeah, I can get that like as an idea, but my brain is not. Like my
Yeah,
brain is sophisticated enough to do that.
yeah.
Like,
It takes a lot of psychedelics and some and unlocking and reconnecting some neurons and whatever the hell else it does. Some synapses, get them shits firing again. Then do some more critical thinking. Then also like you said, watch a lot of conspiracy things on YouTube. I mean, then you'll know everything like me. So when you talk to your friends, you sound like a complete psycho. Because like I think the world's flat, guys, one day, and then dolphins are aliens the next day. But it all could be true. We find out this shit. Like I swear to God, it's gonna be crazy.
anyone who's saying they know the truth for sure, I'm always like, run.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You think like someone was telling me something about like they're sure like the world's a globe and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, because the U.S. government and NASA are batting 1,000, right? Telling they've been telling us the truth the whole time, right? All right, like I don't know what comedian said it, but he's like, I got a kid and I lie to that motherfucker every
Oh,
day.
yeah, totally. Yeah, like they're like our parents. Always get over that.
When you want, when you think the government and NASA are lying, shit out of it. All right, so we'll go ahead, take this real quick break.
Sure.
Don't go nowhere, and we'll be back with mental health as well. All right, we're back, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into mental health as well. And all right, so mental health is wealth is all about obviously our struggle and talking about mental health. Like I myself, trying to normalize talking about, and even when you need to checking yourself into a certain any place or whatever, because in about January, February, I was having a horrible time, and I ended up checking myself into the VA for a few days and got my life trying to figure it out. And I mean, it's not completely figured out my life. I don't know anybody's that is, but that's why we're the healing chefs. Or I am the healing chef. I don't know, but it's continually healing, never healed. So, yeah, if you could share with us, especially being a mindset coach or whatnot.
For sure. And I just want to say, because I've listened to a heap of your episodes, the way you particularly, I feel like this is your, I don't know, this is like your magic or something, because the way you share and destigmatize talking about mental health. it's something about like your personality or the life experiences that you've had, just the way you share and the way you talk about it makes a really cruisy, safe, easy space for everyone. So I just wanted to say thank you in case people don't do that, because you're making it okay for people, particularly on YouTube. Like, you're making it okay for people to be really, what a few years ago was even like hardcore stigmatized, being vulnerable. Being vulnerable was a big threat. And yeah, I just want to thank you for that, because you're doing an awesome
Awesome. I
job there.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
also too, you're like disrupting a bit of stoner culture too. That's like, stoner culture is a little bit like, one of the reasons of, one of the components of stoner culture is to be emotionally dissociated. And
mm,
you're doing this amazing thing of bringing high levels of awareness and expression to also having weed on board at the same time. And that's like a very beautiful evolution to the stoner culture as well. So just wanted to say that and say thanks. So for me, my
you
healing
go.
journey really, oh, you're so welcome. My healing journey really began 2004. I was 24. I'd been, you know, I was really trying to self-medicate. That's what I was doing with recreational drugs. It was all self-medication. I tried visiting psychologists and psychiatrists about the issues that I had around my childhood trauma. Like I've mentioned a couple of times, I was sexually abused when I was 5, and it was someone who isn't in my family. It was someone who was outside of my family. So I had disrupted relationships with men, didn't trust men, and didn't really know why. I had repressed a bunch of it. And then when I was a teenager, I had a spinal injury that was really serious, and lost use of my left hand for a little while and had to do all this rehab. And then that was mismanaged. So I then had chronic pain, and I felt really let down by my body. I couldn't trust my body. I didn't know when I'd be in, crazy nerve pain and not be able to move and stuff. So I had all this kind of anger, and then also this powerlessness of my injury. And so using weed and using psychedelics and recreational drugs were amazing, because they were pain relief. They were taking me to another place. They were connecting me to what I felt like was kind of like more truth and peacefulness of who I was and other people. And also they let me bond with all these other people who were dealing with their stuff too. I found my people who they were into it too. And so when I was like 24, I had this really weird experience happen of like my body clock kicking in, like crazy body clock of I call it the cave woman. And for people who know what this is like, men and women, I've found out that there's like a heap of men as well as women. The desire to procreate and have a kid suddenly comes out of nowhere from your subconscious and like starts screaming at you, have a baby, have a baby, have a baby. So I was like
Can you
24.
get that? Can you get that taken out in a psychiatrist appointment? Because I don't want
I
that.
think that's with your ovaries, or take some medicine.
Oh
So,
God,
so
no.
I really wanted to like have a baby. I'd had that instinct since puberty. I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna happen for me. I have the drive. That's gonna happen. But then at 24, like the body clock kicked in hard, and it felt like every day was this dominant thought of like, you got to have it. So my mind went into this stuff around, well, I've been smoking weed for all this time. I found out that cannabis gets stored in your fat cells. Instead of being like water soluble, it's fat soluble. So that means your body retains it. Your brain, your freaking ovaries are made out of fat, right? Your eggs are made out of fat. So I was like, whoa, if I got pregnant now, that baby would have impact from the drugs that I've taken, because women are born with all their eggs. We're not making new eggs every day. We're born with them, and weed is in them. It's in our brain. It's in everything. So I started to get this idea of like, well, number one, who am I without all this stuff? And then the other one was I really, my body was being like, have a baby. And I was like, well, I need to be clean for at least a year before I had a kid, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically, to know that when I had that kid, I was not like doing anything to impact their life, their genetics, whatever, because I was already a bit medically trained,
Right.
in the medical world, and in terms of careers. So that got me, it really accelerated my pathway, this body clock business that I couldn't explain. It wasn't rational. And so I was like, psychologist, psychiatrist, none of that stuff had worked. So I was really searching for subconscious change, because I knew all that stuff wasn't working. And I found some really good practitioners and coaches. And in Australia, like, it was still really new. We were getting all of our good information from the USA, from people coming here and teaching and training, and healers who were coming from the States and from other countries. We didn't have much here. So yeah, found a really awesome one particular practitioner. Worked with her for like 6 months, and in 6 months, I stopped smoking weed, stopped smoking cigarettes, transformed all those relationships with people that I'd had, like, one of all those trauma bonds and drug bonds with, restored my issues with my family, did a bunch of rehab on my injury, which I'd already been working on for years. But yeah, it was literally like 6 months later, I was a completely different person. It was amazing, and
Yeah.
was free of all the things that I had felt imprisoned by, because I'd like suddenly turned them into my sources of power and done heaps of acceptance work and regression therapy, timeline therapy, which all are like psychedelic journeys, just to let you know, in terms of the disassociation and the awareness experience. Those experiences are like trips. So you're in trance, you're in different states of hypnosis and brainwaves, and you're going on these journeys that I had only known as like psychedelic journeys. So it was like I got to have access to those bits of my brain without having to use, and it was incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing because I talk about that recently. Is like ketamine helped me get to a point where I don't need any of that stuff. But I now know how to handle certain situations and stuff like that. But like for the most part, like you had said, what it does is the stuff that we're kind of like taught growing up and the things that we're forced into and everything, even the different like things that our families and friends and society puts on us creates our personality altogether. Like
Totally.
like Ryan doesn't really exist outside of what I've lived, there wouldn't be me. So like it's just it's all and then once you like okay when you pull back on all um the construct that like the
Yeah, the
human constructs that are all with
yeah.
that are all around you, you're like okay, so what am I, who am I, what am I about, what is this about, what am I doing?
Yeah, if
uh
I'm not my parents' daughter, and I'm not the country I grew up in, and I'm not a privileged white female, and I'm not a sexual abuse survivor, and if I'm not a spinal injury, dealing with that, and if I'm not my pain, and if I'm not my, my the people around me's perception of me, because that's the other thing with humans, is that we're not just all that lived experience, where we only exist through the perception of others. If I was on a desert island alone and ditched there as a 6-month-old baby and somehow managed to survive and didn't develop language and had no other humans around me, I wouldn't have an identity. I'd just be living in the world.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy, like and then once you wipe all that away is like how do you deal with the stuff now,
Mm.
and you kind of go from
Exposure,
there.
right? That's what I feel like is what people call reparenting in therapy. So the really popular concepts now in pop psychology and the healing world are being reparented, which means like any gaps or bumps or shitty bits of your development that were either missed because your parents didn't have those resources, or you had an adverse experience, or you had, some sort of traumatic event happen, or you're in a particular environment that made you who you are. We're missing these gaps in coping strategies and tools, like the way you talk about ketamine. I was listening to a few episodes ago, and you were like, it taught me a bunch of how to handle certain things. You were reparenting yourself, and ketamine was the tool to learn, here's how I want to be in these situations,
Hmm.
here's the way I want to express myself, here's the way I want other people to treat me. And actually having some like ways to handle that, and what kind of things do I say, and how do I do that? Because if we weren't shown
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
how
how do I
would we
not do what
taught
I was already taught, like
that?
how do I break the cycle,
Mm.
and and like and you may not need psychedelics, but psychedelics is what wiped it all away from me,
Yeah,
and that's how I got.
psychedelics were like an unlock for me, like a
Yeah,
huge unlock, and they like went like, this is possible. Like there's this place and there's these feet. It was like I felt like it was a big like carrot got dangled at me with psychedelics, and then it was like, how do I create that in my
m-
regular life? That
mine
became
was,
kind of the mission.
I like the carrot thing. Mine was more like,
Snap the fuck out of it.
hey, guess what? That's all bullshit. And then I'm like, okay, that's cool. Can you show me something like constructive? Like, like, no, all right.
Well,
So
that was
God
more than
shows
just
you the vision, just doesn't show you the path. Because if he shows you the path, you never take it. So I'm
yeah.
like, all right, I just trust the process. Um, awesome.
If we really knew what we had to learn or go through or the process, we would never do it. It's like, yeah, the dangling cat was like, there is this place where you can like love yourself and
Yeah,
have connection with people and feel good about what you're doing and live your mission and
you don't
do
have
the.
to please everybody.
Mm.
Like the and
Oh, was
it's
that one of
okay to
yours?
set boundaries.
Yeah.
It's okay to cut some people out of your life because there's places that you're going that some people can't follow. And it's a sad thing, and I've lost some people along my way to
Yeah.
from little kid to right now, along the way, and I'll probably still have to like
You'll
edit
keep
my
on
life
saying
from yeah
it's
and
a
stuff.
beautiful thing. Like one of my coolest learning healing journey lessons was that when I had this false perception, societal construct thing,
Mm,
that when relationship ends, that's a type of personal failure, which then of course brings shame, right? So I had like that false construct that needed to be reparented and repatterned. And then after I got that lesson around how it's actually like it's beautiful and it's a sign of growth and evolution, and if you respect both people in the process, it's actually a win-win and it's a really loving experience of not being in each other's lives.
yeah,
I got this. I call it now the letting them drift off into the sunset. That's my thing now. It's like because I learned the painful lesson of when you sometimes you need to end certain relationships, and I'll be like, right, okay, so I've got to do this the right way. I'll sit
mm.
down and I'll tell this person that we're ending the relationship, and here's the. I learned very, very quickly that that is a waste of fucking time, and it is very. I just
It's
learned
just gonna draw you back into the bullshit.
to the sunset. You just disconnect. You just stop responding, letting those time. Don't initiate. You just let them drift off, and that was a really good lesson.
And then the one up on that is like, okay, but like even if you're mad at somebody, just wish them good luck. Like good luck to you. I hope. I mean, and I'm not saying say that to them, but like really mean that.
Yeah, that's the
But,
position you take, which is like
yeah,
I'm so grateful for the role you
but
played in my life, and I want only good things for you, and that
there's
doesn't require us to be around each other.
yeah, and one last thing before we get into the promo and stuff, unless, but it's like you got to be nicer to yourself. I keep telling people this stuff, but it's something that I've learned over this time. And here's a real quick one. Like when you spill something or drop something, you immediately go, "What an like God." Or like you idiot, or damn it, you dumb it, or something, or I'm stupid, or dumb, or what the hell or what are you doing?
Or you blame
Like, you're
someone
like
else.
literally scolding
Subconsciously,
yourself.
some people drop something and yell at another person. Like there's a couple of versions of that.
Right. So like you're only continuing what you were taught and everything. Like and like so now instead of doing that to myself and like I spill something in the middle of what I'm doing, like I gotta remind myself like I had to like before I came here because you don't see my mug that I had it's not here. I
Yeah.
was cleaning it and I dropped it and it broke. And I
Oh,
immediately went, "Idiot, you idiot."
oh,
And I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "Nope, we're just gonna order another one."
yeah.
And I was like,
It's
just
funny
being
you say
just
that. No
like
one else has ever said that. But one of the
just
ways that
challenge.
I had changed was that when bad things happen, I do something wrong. One of the biggest ways that I knew I had changed so radically in my fabric of who I am is that stuff happens, and my instant reaction would be like to laugh
Mm,
instead of self-attack. That was one of my biggest healing journey turning points, was realizing I'd gone from self-attack and self-criticism to being like, oh, how funny. And that was a huge, so thank you for saying that, because that
absolutely.
was, I've never told anyone that. That was one of my biggest things that just internally I was like, oh, well, that's really different. That is a
It,
really different reaction.
it's that, and then also now that I know, like when I'm like upset and I do something and I am self-deprecating, I'm like, "Damn it, you idiot," or something like that. It's also an alert to me that there's something else that I'm really worried about, something going on in my life, and that's why
Yes.
I'm reacting like that. It's not the situation because
Right.
we drop things. It's an accident.
Yeah.
It's a $10 mug. Like it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, there's
Like
something else happening subconsciously that's like
and yeah,
playing.
and I'm like, okay. So sometimes even when I don't know upset, I'm like, ah. Learned again. Damn it, I learned again. We keep learning.
Awesome.
So did you have anything else that you wanted to jump on
Oh,
here?
well, that was amazing. I've never shared that with anyone, that like internal register thing. And just the way you said, I was like, oh, wow, you're like, it felt like you were kind of telling my story of one of the ways that I knew that I was not okay is the way that I would talk to myself. And then the big difference in just, and like not having to try, not having to coach myself and redirect myself or consciously control myself. It was just like that being the genuine reaction of like laughing or being like, oh, ha, funny, or whatever, or just being peaceful about it and just going and dealing with it instead of going through a process of being, self-critical and self-attacking and stuff. That's a massive subconscious shift. Anything else about my healing journey? No, just like finding those subconscious tools. I'm like, that's the shiz. And I just want to say, like, people then go, oh, well, if you're into subconscious, do you not recommend conscious tools like managing your self-talk? You drop your mug, you realize you're having a go at yourself. So then you consciously go, hang on, something else is really going on here. What am I really upset about? What's going on? It's just a $10 mug. And like the way you'd lovingly talk to a kid, like what you're doing to yourself there is reparenting. You're being loving and going,
Yeah,
hang on, it's okay. This is just a $10 mug. Let's get things in perspective. What's really going on? How do you want to deal with this? What are we going to do next? How are we going to move forward? That's just really
yeah,
loving and beautiful. And so I am a big fan of doing both at the same time, doing conscious work and subconscious, because you can't always access subconscious work because usually it's behind a paywall of a practitioner or a professional coach who's got certain certifications and skills. And that was, I think, the biggest thing that frustrated me for so long is I'm like, hang on, I'm smart enough to know what these subconscious techniques are doing. I've had access to things like psychedelics, which means I could do my own subconscious work, because that's what I really feel like is happening with psychedelics, is you're doing a beautiful deep dive into your subconscious and examining shit and addressing it and correcting and,
exactly.
throwing things away, reconnecting, reconnecting to things that are more resourceful and truthful and peaceful and powerful. Around ourselves, our place in the universe, all that stuff, behaviors, relationships. But I do recommend both, because if you can't access subconscious work, conscious tools over time, it's like drip, 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 drip. It's like Chinese, water torture. It's like over time, it all adds up.
Yeah,
And then, of course, my biggest thing, which we'll talk about in the promo part, is I then developed my own subconscious change technique so people could do stuff to themselves, because I was like, this is crazy that you have to then wait. So either I have to go on a trip that lasts for 8 hours, but I just want to change one thing. I just want to do one thing. I want to address one issue. And I don't want to have to pay $2,000 to someone,
right.
be able to do it whenever I want to do it. So I'm a little bit of a DIY person. So I got after being like obsessed with who am I without all these constructs, without all these substances, without all these things, who am I really, like what's the truth of
Right.
who I am? I then got into like how can I do that whenever I want, anytime, anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about controlling, like finding your boundaries and personal growth. And I love all this. This is good stuff. And we're just gonna jump into the last segment real quick, the promo talk and plug talk. I mean. All right. And we're just going to run this real quick, running out a little bit of time, pushing the time today. Appreciate everybody at Habari Entertainment for dealing with being a little tardy. All right. So, real quick, you want to drop anything that you got promo
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, check me out on Instagram at Emily the Diamond. There's a link in bio. I've got a free conscious book, which is all around conscious techniques that you can do anywhere, anytime to expand your consciousness, peace, power, dealing with uncomfortable emotions, all that stuff. And if you comment on any of my posts on Instagram with the word book, it'll be automatically sent to you in your DMs. I've got a free online community too, but you can find all that stuff in my link in bio. And one of the biggest things I love to do is talk about all the scams that are rampant in the personal development industry, because there are a heap of scams and a heap of like false premises around like you have to always be doing the work, always be healing, that you can be like cured, and all of these things that run rampant in the PD industry. And I love just like ripping that all up and
Love it.
because I've been behind the scenes. I've worked in that industry now 18 years, and I've been worked with some of the biggest names in the biggest places, and I've seen some scary shit, seen some magical shit, but I love exposing it all. So come join my online community. But yeah, all my links are in my link in bio at Emily the Diamond on Instagram.
Awesome. That is dope. Yeah, I've definitely been watching your profile, your page. I'm getting older. Your page and whatnot, and love all the spiritual. I mean the clips and stuff about the mindset and the coaching and whatnot stuff that helps. It helps me out a lot too, because I've started blocking a lot of different people and stuff out of my life and setting my boundaries and stuff. And it's great to see the positive stuff, and yours is always positive. And a bit challenging to some societal norms and stuff. And I love that stuff. So thank you very much for everything that you do. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. We're here to like make it all happen together. And thank you for like I said, normalizing people sharing about their shit. And we are all in this together. And I'm so delighted that you've been able to give people this pathway, particularly,
Well, and we're gonna keep going.
like
And
weed is acceptable. Like that thing of like everything is a type of medicine. I'm a big fan of that everything is a type of medicine if you let it be.
absolutely. And for the Healing Chefs coming up, it's if you're just on YouTube, please subscribe, comment down below, all that stuff. Make your friends sit down and watch it. I'm not telling you to kidnap anybody, but I mean, so YouTube, Spotify, YouTube, Spotify. This is all satire. And then on Instagram, it's _healing chefs. What we do have coming up next weekend will be Dankonomics, aka John from Project Pax, Blueprint, Made, all that. We've been smoking a lot of Made lately. That's going to be dope. And then that's at 1 p.m. And at 2 p.m. we have Mr. Boofman and LA Devil Lettuce. Shout out to them. He's been doing a little editing for me here and there, Mr. Boofman, just because he's a fan of the show, which is dope. And he was part of Canna Cribs, and he's got his own stuff going on. We're going to talk about all that stuff and more. Hopefully, have his little his puppy on the show. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, just check us out. Like I said, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, all that stuff, merch right here, stuff like this. Um, uh, in the highlights and stuff, you can order it at any time, guys. Anytime you can go buy stuff. I'm just kidding. But yeah, make sure you go check all the stuff out. We're gonna have clips coming up eventually. Thank you very much, Emily. This has been dope. We're gonna do it again in the future, and we'll see the progress of this show and yourself as well. Thank you to Habari Entertainment, HabariEntertainment.com. Habari is all about news and all that kind of stuff for any of your video needs as well. All right. Everybody have a great Sunday. Have a great day, whatever day you're having right now. Have a day. Um, and make sure you tap in, smoke up, trip out. Love y'all. Boom.